Hi, my name is Phil Hallman. I'm the Film Studies librarian at the University of Michigan Library.
I'm Vincent Longo. I'm an assistant professor of communication at Western Michigan University.
My name is Justin Schill. I'm the director of digital scholarship and creative spaces here at the U of M Library, and I helped build the Zooniverse project, My Dear Mr. Wells. My Dear Mr. Wells is a Zooniverse project that asked volunteers to transcribe 1,359 letters that were sent to Orson Welles after the War of the Worlds broadcast in 1938.
And these collections came to us first from a donation by Christopher Wilson. He was the son of Richard Wilson. Now, Orson Welles and Richard Wilson met in their early 20s in New York and then proceeded to have a long-time friendship. So without Richard Wilson, there really wouldn't be a lot of documents saved. These letters were actually in Richard Wilson's garage for many years. And the family described them as being in a box that was often used as a doorstop. That's really amazing that they ended up coming here.
War of the Worlds is one of those legendary moments in American history, not just for broadcasting, although obviously it was a very famous broadcast, perhaps maybe the most famous broadcast. It's famous for all sorts of reasons. It is studied now for people's reaction to and fears of fascism, how they understand news, how news spreads, how something becomes viral, and so it's really one of these touchstone moments. The myths around War of the Worlds sort of won't die. They won't go away, right? The myth is when people heard this broadcast of aliens taking over New York and New Jersey, that everybody grabbed their money, everybody grabbed their guns, everybody grabbed their families and ran to the hills. Now, from these letters, we do know that that did happen. You know, maybe one person, two people, three people, whatever. But these letters show us that most people did not do that. Most people thought very lowly of people who did do that. The newspaper accounts largely at the time really blew up that story, and that's stayed with us. And it's been, you know, sort of this telling legend that these letters, perhaps better than anything else, disprove immediately.
There was one letter I remember where they basically was like, you owe me this amount of money for gas, or you owe me this amount of money for other expenses incurred as I fled the city. There were many people who knew it was staged, that it was not a documentary, that it was not breaking news, and they were totally excited about it. They were like, this was amazing, when are you gonna do it again? Please send me a script.
There are people who are writing their ironing, you know, listening to the show, and then suddenly they're so compelled to like put their iron down and write. But they tell you this stuff, like the level of detail about that they share about their daily life at that point is so amazing.
I think in part this project came from a request that you received from a school that said, hey, I want to teach these letters. Can you send me them? I think you were like, maybe, but I don't know. But then the other problem became a lot of the letters are in cursive and they can't easily be read. And so then they were also asking, well, do you have transcriptions? And so it was really important for us to find a really efficient way of getting them available, getting them transcribed, getting them organized. But then we had some conversation with Justin, who had just started working with Zooniverse. It was just a match made in heaven.
The Zooniverse audience really helped bring the words to life.
What Zooniverse made possible is to make these letters accessible to researchers and teachers in the easiest, most efficient way possible. So this included transcribing them when they're cursive so people can read them, but also so that they can be word searchable so researchers can look up individual words, find them that way. We organized them by state, also coded them so you could see very clearly, like, 32 people were afraid. And that, you know, is sometimes hard to determine, but the Zooniverse sort of committee, you know, by the process was like, yep, these people were afraid. We coded this as afraid. And so we were able to use the sort of people power to make very clear and sort of consensus ideas of like how each letter fit within this story. And the results of that are really impeccable.
We put the handwritten letters up first, and those were finished in like 36 hours. I've done 10 or so Zooniverse projects, and I've never been part of one that worked that fast. We ended up putting the typed ones online as well. The people wanted more letters to transcribe. The letters were so evocative and the stories were so evocative, but also just there's so much history in these letters and in this project. All of these letters, all the scans of them, all the transcripts are now in a searchable digital database on the library website.
You can go and probably find a letter that's from your city or a very nearby city and realize that this affected your community members, sometimes even your family. We have people write and say, oh yeah, that was my grandma.
Yeah.
Who wrote that letter. Like, this is so wonderful. I've never seen anything like this before in my family.